everybody. I wanted to make a follow-up video to my video yesterday. So I found out about what I called then the health bug. And usually when I make a video, I plan it out thoroughly. I kind of try to get an idea of what I'm gonna make, what I'm gonna talk about. Try to draw a plan together. I didn't really do that with last video. I just, as soon as I figured out what was going on, I was like, oh man, I gotta tell everybody, I gotta make a video about this. And I did, and I posted it, and there we go. Now, I'm not gonna say that anything I said in that video was incorrect, because actually the mathematics is very sound, and I've tested it again and again and again, and I'm about to show you a lot of pictures of that stuff. But the things that I said on Line App, I made some fallacies, and I actually brought up what a fallacy is so you guys can understand. A faulty reasoning, misleading, or unsound argument. And there is a logical fallacy, I forget what it's called, where you kind of make an assumption, and then you look for evidence of that assumption. Then you find evidence of that assumption, you go, aha, my assumption is correct. But in reality, you were always looking for that evidence. You kind of overlooked all the other evidence that points otherwise. Anyway, enough of that. I'm sure you didn't start watching this video to find out what a fallacy is. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little story. Now, I made the video, and I thought about this, and I was like, if I have a lot more health than somebody, then that will multiply my health times 100. So even having like 100% more health equals like, 10,000 more percent. I should be able to kill somebody that's much bigger than me and has a lot more troops than me. So I set up a little thing where I knew Trademark would unbubble for, and he did. And I actually caught him in gear that he normally wouldn't have while he's in the middle of a fight. I'm not going to tell you what that was because I promised him not to tell anybody. But the bottom line is he didn't have spy gear on. He didn't even have links on or anything like that. And yet, I totally got my ass kicked. I mean, you can see it's not even close. And I was like, all right, well, let's go back. Let's talk about what I think happens when a fight occurs in Vikings. I think what Plarium does is that first they determine your the total mass volume of your troops by using the square root of attack times defense times health. So that tells them who the winner is, and then the second step is just to determine how much troops the winner lost, because the loser is always going to lose 80% of troops no matter what. And as I showed you yesterday, sometimes the winner will also lose 80%, and that's what I call a tie. And I made this really big: square root, attack, defense, and health. I think this is like the key to everything in this game. Well, not the key to everything, but understanding who wins and who loses in a battle. And when this happened, I was like, okay, well, maybe this new bug or whatever, I don't know if it's a bug anymore, only affects step number 2. It doesn't affect step number 1. I was quickly proven wrong. I did a simple test. I added 15% of health on one side and then didn't change anything here. And the result was dramatic. You see, if you do the math here, it's 1,600, because if you take 15% of health and times 100, you end up with 1,500. And then you got to remember that the troops started out with 100. So that's how you get the 1,600. If you do that times, times together, and then the square root, you get 4,000. And these troops, the 4,000, they didn't have anything, so they're 100 times 100 times 100. If you divide this number by that number, you get 4029. And you'll actually see that 4031 succeeds and 4030 fails. So I'm almost exactly on the dot here, right? So that proved that my assumption that step number 1 wasn't being affected by this was wrong. Okay, so it is being affected. I mean, no matter what, it's taking this health number and it's multiplying it times 100. But the effect that it actually has on the battle was really magnified in my head because, as you can see here, what I did is I added 3.8% of health to the other side. So before the side had nothing at all, you see here, and now it has 3.8 health. We look at the same mathematics, now it's 480 because, like I said, 380 plus 100, and instead of just by adding 3.8%, I went from having a ratio of these troops being 4 times stronger to not even 2 times stronger. See what I mean? How adding just a little bit made a huge difference in the ratio. And this is with troops that have nothing. You know, these guys, 15%, 3.8%, that's really small. You know, when you talk about normal battles, you usually have like up to 1,000%, sometimes 1,500% of stuff. So what's the point? The point is this, and I started doing a lot of other testing, and I started doing a lot of theory crafting, and this is what you just saw here. You see how I actually try to do math for a lot of different things. Let's talk about a couple of other tests I did. So what I did initially is I started playing with hero skills, and I took one side of these guys who actually have different stats now because I started playing with them a little bit more. But you can see it here. I took one side and made it 104, 106. So I added just, they started out with this because I wanted them to be equal. So both sides had 104, 106.75, 1.675, right? That's what they started out with. And as you can see, 800, 800, it's a tie. And they both had this. On the next one, what I did is I added a lot of attack to one side, but remained these the same. And I added less health to the other side. So the math is here. I added 67% attack to one side and only 14% of health to the other. So you see this one has 14% health more, and this side has 67% more defense. Well, as it turns out, the side that received just 14% more health was stronger. Despite, you know, 67 and 14, you know, that's what, 4 times more actual percents. But strength-wise, the guys with more health are stronger. And let me show you. So you see this 1.328. If you look at this, 1.328, the defender wins. 1.329, the defender loses. So we know that the 1.328 number is correct right here by simply looking at these two test results. This is what the stats of those troops were. I was like, all right, well, let's see what happens if we add quite a bit more stats. So now what I did is I didn't change the attack. It still was 171 to 104, but I added health to both sides. To this side, I added it, made it from 106 to 161, and to this side, I added even more. Went from 121 to 203. So you see the difference here. You actually have quite a bit more health than before, but the ratio of how much health each side has is actually not as much. So what do I mean by that? If you divide this number by this number, you get 2.9. If you divide this number by this number, you get 1.65. So even though this number is bigger, the amount of percent change is bigger, the ratio here is smaller. And for that reason, the troops are actually equal in strength here. Despite the fact that here you only had a 14% health difference, which made these troops a lot bigger. Here you have a 41% health difference. So still, this side has more health than this one. And in this case, it actually has 40% more health. Than here, it only had 14%. But yet the troops are almost the same. And here, let me show you. Here, 1004, the attack succeeds. 1003, the attack fails. Right? So what does that mean? What? I know I'm probably confusing a lot of people with all this math. It confused me. I'm still a bit confused. But What it really means is that the more percent everybody has, the less effect this has on the troop mass, the stat that determines who wins. The number of health, the more everybody has, the less of an effect it has. And so this is my stats. This is what my stats are, right? I took 10% of attack and added it to 10% of health, and the side with more health actually is stronger, but only by 0.2%. 0.2%, not 2%, but 0.2%. I then took out 120, so that's the equivalent of 12 gems, and took away that, right? And then added it 120 health gems. So instead of having, let's say, rhodonites or taffies, I put in rubies. That made my troops 2.5% stronger. So what's the takeaway? The takeaway is that by adding more health, you are making your troops stronger. You are making it a bigger troop mass, but not by as much as you might think. You know, I mean, I added what here? What's the difference? Oh God, come on. Shit. This minus this. I added 12,000 more health to my side, right? But adding 12,000 health and taking away 120 attack only made a 2% difference. You know, it kind of blows your mind. You're like, how can 12,000% health have such a small effect? And the issue is the ratio. The ratio isn't that big. It's only 1.18. You know, the ratio hasn't changed that much, and you're multiplying all these numbers. You're not just taking these two numbers. So yeah, you have 18% more health, but you also have, you know, let's see, 12% less attack. What's the bottom line? The bottom line is I told a lot of people that having more health will not make your troop mass bigger. That's wrong. If Plarium doesn't change this, you actually do want more troop health, as I illustrated here. And I'm doing all this with T1s, by the way. So I think T5s and T6s has a bigger effect. Maybe that's something I should have figured out before I made this video. But I was kind of going crazy with this. I just had to put my thoughts in the video before I just forgot it all. Bottom line is this. The health bug or change or whatever it is, it has a much bigger effect on how many troops are lost in a battle when you win or when the other side wins versus how much it affects the troop mass. But it does affect the troop mass. And as it stands, whereas before I used to tell people they should focus on having more taffies and more attack, I think now you need to focus on removing some of the defense and adding more attack. I'm probably going to make like a third video to wrap all this up, and by then maybe they'll fix this and maybe all this will be for nothing. But I really had to put all this, I had to put all these thoughts in the video before I forgot it all, because it's a lot, and I just wanted to show you guys, you know, I've been doing a lot of tests. It's not like I'm just making all this stuff up. This is, from the point that I figured all this out, look at how many tests I've done. All this, all this, all this, all this, all this. So yeah, so this is where I started, and you know, and this is the 520 versus. So yeah, if you guys have questions, please let me know. Somebody posted, I think, a comment in my video saying you're wrong, you're misinforming people. I'm all for constructive criticism. I don't mind it. It's not going to piss me off. If you show me how I'm wrong, that helps me. I don't want to misinform people. But don't just say I'm wrong. Show me how I'm wrong. Show me the math. Be like, hey, you're wrong here. You did the math wrong here. It's actually this. It's actually that. If you just say you're wrong and I'm reporting you, that doesn't do anything. I just showed you many different ways how my math adds up. I've been wrong before, and I've made some really fallacious statements on Line App. I've made some serious fallacies, and I apologize for that. Yeah. I think I'm going to end it here. Thank you. Please like and subscribe and make comments. Peace.
Peace.